Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a treat for you. I have someone I consider to be, I guess, the first lady of horror. When I think about the first lady of horror, there's only one name that comes to mind, somebody that I have watched for a long time, who I've admired, and she is now a writer, she's a producer, and she's a tremendous actress, the great Barbara Crampton. So give a great warm Robservations welcome to Barbara Crampton, somebody who we all know and love, I think, and somebody who, if you follow her on social media, you can't not love her, because boy is she warm and considerate, and
thank you.
It's amazing. So Barbara, it is so fantastic to have you here. I'm just so happy.
Thanks.
Giddy.
Oh, awesome. It's, we talk on social media, but I haven't talked to you in person ever.
No.
So this is a real treat for me as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a little hot and schwitzy, but maybe it's just because of your presence. Well, I guess, one of the things that I have loved what you've done, obviously, with Stewart Gordon, and I first saw you, obviously, in Re-Animator and From Beyond, and then I was working at Full Moon when you continue to work with Stewart. And what I found really interesting is how, you have, in the last, decade, you've appeared in so many interesting movies and worked with so many interesting filmmakers, and your career has, I've just been very impressed with what you've done. And then you've also been you've been so generous with the horror fan community, which is a singular community, as you know. And
yes.
you've been writing a column in Fangoria magazine that you won a Rondo for. And it's
it's amazing. I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm having a better time now than I had when I was younger, because I don't feel like I'm struggling as much. I think the struggle is very difficult, and I think everybody in the beginning of their career do struggle a little bit, and I definitely felt like that, even though I had some great success coming out of the gate with Re-Animator and From Beyond and working with Stewart. It was still tough out there, slogging to auditions and competing against a lot of other young ladies who had tremendous talent, and just there's only so many jobs, and there's always been a lot of actors out there. So it was difficult at times. I went through periods of my life where I felt like I worked consistently for a year or two, and then maybe I don't work for 9 months, or I don't work for 15 months. And I see it on social media now, the friends that I talk to, even your friend Dave Parker, and a lot of people that are extremely talented. My friend Roxanne Benjamin, a lot of people that are really at the forefront of what horror is right now. And aside from the coronavirus pandemic and us all having to stay home, it's very difficult. And you have to, what I learned with my second round is that you're only done if you decide to be done. And I've had a career now for 35 years. I've had ups, I've had downs, and my downs were really down. My ups were great. And it takes that one movie or that one project or that one thing, that one connection that can really change your life. And you have to hang in there, and you have to figure out a way to hang in there. For me, I left the business after I did Castle Freak, not really leaving thinking that's it, I'm done. But I moved up to San Francisco with my husband because he had a much better job than I did, and he was transferred. and we wanted to have children, and I was an older mom to begin with, so we had to start right away. And I focused just on my kids and being a mom and helping out at their school and, just being around for my family. And when I got a call out of the blue to come and do Adam Wingard's You're Next through Keith Calder and Jessica Wu, the producers, I thought, oh, this is a lark. This will be fun for me. I'll have a great time because motherhood's really hard and acting's really fun. And I kind of remember I enjoyed it. So I thought, well, okay, I'll do this little job and I'll see what happens. And that job opened up a whole new sort of chapter in my career.
What a terrific film too. I mean, Adam Wingard, what a talent and a great.
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of, I mean, it's sort of interesting. So to me, the genre film community, living in LA and being a part of sort of that extended horror community is one of the most loyal and one of the most. I know you were in Tales of Halloween that Dave Parker directed the second floor, but Axel Carolyn and Mike Mendez, and I mean all these people.
Amazing.
And I feel like you have become, you're somebody that everyone loves you. And I think you have a quality, not only are you, a talented actress, but there's something about you where you're chameleon-like you can play, you have a wide range of things that you can do. And I think that has served you well. And I think a lot of people,
thank you.
Well, it's great to watch. And I've loved seeing it happen.
I think that just began though, because I don't think people knew that about me in the early days. I mean, I was a young, semi-attractive blonde girl, that got a few parts in some movies and did fine. Did well, I guess, especially with the Stewart Gordon films. But I was never offered character parts. And I went to school.
Okay.
I have a degree from a university in theater, so I studied the classics. I played the Mad Woman of Chaillot. I mean, I played Gertrude in Hamlet. I've done all that kind of stuff. And it was only as I got older that anybody was even seeing me or offering me any of those parts. And to get the first part like that a few years ago was not easy for me also. And I'll tell you what happened. After I did Castle Freak, I said, I just wasn't getting offered things. And I was like in my mid-30s. And so, I just wasn't sure what I was going to do. Soon after I met my husband, as I said, and I moved. But at that time, I was too old to be the young femme fatale, and I was not yet old enough where people were, even though I played the mom in Castle Freak, people weren't buying me as the mom yet. So I was sort of in between, and I didn't realize that until I got older. I thought, why aren't people calling me? I don't know. And then when I did Your Next, of course, I played the mother of 4 children, and they were in their 30s, and I thought, okay, this is a whole new category for me. But one of the next things I did after that was a movie called Sunchoke. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I have not seen it.
I play kind of a crazy caretaker of this young girl, Sarah Hagen from Freaks and Geeks, who has schizophrenia. And I was her caretaker, but I'm, not such a nice caretaker.
Right.
Well, a casting call came out, and, I still audition for certain things, not everything. But this was another low budget sort of independent movie, and I had just come off the heels of Your Next. And so they asked me if I would come in and audition or if I would put myself on tape. And I had just hired a new manager. I still had my same agent. My agent, by the way, had never dropped me from the time that I did Castle Freak to moving up to Northern California and working here and there. He, we're very good friends, and he always kept me in his stable of actors. But then after I did Your Next, I thought, well, maybe I need somebody else helping me on my team. So I hired Josh Silver, who's my manager still today. And he said to these people, Barbara could audition for you, but she's getting a lot of offers now. And I really wasn't.
Right.
And she did so well in Your Next. And I think you'd be, lucky to have her. And she's not auditioning for this budget level. If you want to hire her, you're just going to have to make her an offer. So I guess they had some auditions for the part of Irma was her name. And nobody was really knocking their socks off. So they just took a chance and made an offer to me, and I did the role, and that, even though it's a small movie that's just a little underseen, there are people that are out there, casting directors and other producers of independent movies that did see it. And so then I started getting offered those kinds of roles. I played a really wicked character in this movie Dead Night recently, and I played a wicked doctor in Replace.
You posted a clip of that on Twitter, and I'm like, I want to see this. This looks great.
It was co-written by Richard Stanley.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's also had a huge career resurgence.
Amazing. I know.
Amazing.
He and I are very friendly. I was so happy for him. In fact, I hadn't seen that movie when it first came out. I don't know why. And I was so aware of it. But now with the pandemic lockdown, I'm watching everything. So I did watch it the other night, and I sent him a note. I thought it was extraordinary. I thought he did a great job. I loved the film. It's so representative of Lovecraft, and the descriptions in a lot of his stories, like Stewart. I mean, they were realized on screen. I think he did an amazing job. And the gal in the movie who plays opposite Nick Cage,
Yeah.
The dynasty family of, who I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I'm drawing a blank on her name too.
Yeah, she's quite lovely. And anyway, she was turned into a monster, and it was like a Lovecraftian monster with her son. They were both joined together, and it was all gelatinous and eerie and weird, and the sound. Right? You saw it, right?
Yeah, I loved it.
And the sounds and everything. It was so great. So, long story short, yeah, I'm glad that people are now seeing me in that light, because I feel like a whole new category has been opened for me.
Yeah.
And and I kind of want to be the Betty White of horror. So if I can stick around for a while, that's I'd like to play the grandmother roles.
I love that. I mean, that is one of the things that you have, and I think with a horror community, there's a convention circuit, and was that something when you started out, like working with Stewart and Jeff Combs? Were you aware of that? And what is it like being a horror icon? Has it ever been intimidating for you? Or do you like having particularly horror fans? Because we can be a little extreme.
You guys are lovely and nice and wonderful and supportive and interested and interesting. And I spent a lot of years on soap operas. I spent 12 years on 4 different soap operas. And those fans are pretty voracious as well, but they don't have conventions.
Right.
They don't have groups where they get together and have bowling parties or karaoke parties or trivia. I mean, when I came back after doing You're Next, and Simon Barrett said to me, Barbara, nobody really calls each other anymore. I'll email you once in a while, but if you want to keep in contact with me, it would be best if you joined Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I said, what? Really? That's the only way you're going to talk to me? He goes, frankly, yes. And so I joined all those sites, and then all of a sudden, and Scott Weinberg was one of my first followers, and I realized that I was part of a group that I didn't know I belonged to. Because the answer to your question is, in the early days, I think there were conventions, but I wasn't really, I know there were, because I wrote about that in my column.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of them, like a lot of you were in the early days, going to the Fango conventions and in New York, and it just wasn't part of it wasn't part of my life, because, and I've talked about this before, being an actor in the 80s, you stayed in your lane. That's all you did. And Stewart stayed in his lane. He was a director and a writer, but that's what he did. Today, the kids today, like Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett and Amy Simett and Ty West and all of these people, they write, they direct, they shoot their movies, they act in their movies, and they kind of do it all. So when I joined the social media sites, all of a sudden people were following me and inviting me to things. And, I come down to I live in San Francisco, but I come down to LA quite often, and we're moving there very soon. We're moving back. I have 2 children in high school, and when they both graduate, we're moving back probably within a year, or a year when my daughter graduates. So if she goes back to school, that's to be seen. But I started, I met Mike Mendez, and I met Axel Carolyn, and I met all these wonderful people that I didn't really know. And James Wan came to a bowling party that I was at, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, these are my people. These are my people.
Yeah.
And the horror community has welcomed me back. With Your Next, I was able to go to the Toronto Film Festival, and we premiered there at the Ryerson Theatre, and I think it holds 1,700 people. Then I went to Fantastic Fest, and I met all the horror. You've been to Fantastic Fest?
Yeah.
Have you been there? The horror fans down there are amazing and insane and supportive, and the knowledge is ridiculous. So I decided that I was going to rededicate my life to working again, if I could, and having my family and being a part of the horror community, which really was my first love and joy and had welcomed me back with open arms. I said, why would I not really want to be a part of this community? I don't really care if I do a drama on TV or I, do some sort of comedy movie, although I think I can be funny, but I want to be in a horror comedy.
Right.
So I'm all in. And then a couple of years ago, I met Dallas Saunier from Fangoria and Cinestate, and he had just started his company and was on the heels of the success of Bone Tomahawk. And then he had a film at the Stanley Film Festival with a friend of mine. The name of the movie was called Some Kind of Hate. And that was showing there. And he was there, and he may have had another film, I'm not sure. I was there promoting We Are Still Here. Ted Gagan was there. I met Clark Collis from Entertainment Weekly. That was a whole nother group of people that I met. And it was there that I talked to Dallas a lot, and then he reached out to me to be in Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich, one of his early Fangoria films, and that generated a very nice relationship. And then he had the magazine. He said, "Do you want to write a column?" I've written a few articles before. I wrote an article about Don't Call Me a Scream Queen,
right?
Because I kind of just felt in my mind that we're beyond that, and we should move beyond that moniker, and that women in the genre are so much more than what I think that term, in its reductive state sort of conjures up in your mind. Anyway, he said, "Would you like to write a column?" And I thought, that's a great opportunity. I'm not really a writer, but you know what? I'll do it. Right. I'm going to do it because I have some things to say.
Yes, you do.
And yeah, so I started doing that, and then I realized how much I loved it, and I had a lot of help from Meredith Borders, who is my editor, and Phil Noble, and all the people there. And so I felt like, okay, with them, sort of helping me and nurturing me and looking at my material and giving me comments, and then, editing things that I couldn't possibly think of, I think I could do this. So I'm now on my 9th or 10th article.
Now you're an award-winning writer.
And now I got an award, which is kind of crazy, but yeah. And they said it was surprising because it's usually given to more established writers, or the movies they pick are usually from established filmmakers and things like that too. So except for the best first feature, but I was surprised and very honored, and I thought, okay, I'm on the right track. And and so now I've been producing a little bit, and I still continue to act, and I really love the horror community, and I'm all in here, Robert. I'm all in.
Well, I love the fact that you went off and had a family, and you became a mom, and now you come back to the business, you come back to the industry. And I've been banging around the Ken Foree. The first movie I ever worked on as the art department production assistant. He was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 31 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
And so you'd work with him before then.
Yes.
And it was interesting because the movies that you're in with people like because of Dawn of the Dead. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right.
You know,
and he was amazing in it. Wasn't he? He's so good in it.
He's
if
so
you go back
amazing.
and watch it now, right?
Oh, he was so. I mean, and it just. What I thought was cool about your career, like you say, Scream Queen, you were never really a Scream Queen. You know, you were the characters you played were a little bit more elevated, especially in From Beyond. I mean, there was a lot more going on in the films. And sure, when you played Megan Halsey I love when Jeffrey Combs says, "Here you are, trysting with the bubble-headed Steel, the secret of life and death, and here you are, trysting with the bubble-headed co-ed."
Yeah.
But you got to work with the great actors. I mean, the cast of Re-Animator is so good.
Yeah.
And you held your own.
We were all from the theater. Thank you. Yeah. And you know, maybe you know this by now because I've talked about it before and it's been written about, but we rehearsed that movie for 3 weeks.
Right.
6 hours a day. And we rehearsed it in my house. I had a little house that I was renting with my then boyfriend. And for some reason, I had the biggest living room. I said, "You guys come over to my house. Let's rehearse." We didn't get paid for it. I didn't even ask to get paid. I didn't even think about it. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't ask to get paid for rehearsal now. I consider it more than just, you know, it's a luxury if you get some time and you should get paid for it. My agents would not want me to say that. But if somebody wants me to rehearse, I'll rehearse. Sure. I want to make the best thing I can possibly make. So if we can do that, great. That is one of the things that I think, you know, if we wanted to break Re-Animator down and say, what are the top 10 things that made that movie as good as it was? And, you know, first of all, I would say the script was great. Second of all, I would say Jeffrey Combs' portrayal of Herbert West was, you know, I don't know where that character came from. I mean, it was there on the page, but he put so much more into it as well. It was like channeling some other thing from the Lovecraft universe. But, and also, you know, I think that Bruce Abbott and I had a very nice relationship together. I had a secret crush on him the whole time. I feel like maybe he had a secret crush on me. I don't know. But maybe because he was married to Linda Hamilton at the time. And I remember her coming to the set, you know, a few times and talking to me about, you know, if I was interested in her husband. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and I said, "Oh no, not at all." But secretly inside, it worked because I definitely did, but I wouldn't admit that to her, and never revealed that to Bruce until later. But there were other things about it. I mean, the comedy and you know,
and then Stewart and his wife and coming out of the Chicago the theater that they started,
the background they had,
And what was really interesting is when you did that film at the time, these movies were getting big theatrical releases. I mean, speaking of Linda Hamilton, the year before Re-Animator, Terminator came out. You know, and these were not big budget films, but Empire Pictures, Charlie was putting out From Beyond was theatrical, Re-Animator was theatrical. The first Trancers movie with Tim Thomerson was a theatrical release. And
well, you know, our budget for From Beyond was $5 million.
Yeah.
And think of what we could do with $5 million, you know, back then. We were able to do a lot. And, you know, in today's money, that's a lot. I don't know what that is.
Well,
you know?
but everybody wants to make movies for $2 million or less. You know, Blumhouse has their formula.
Well, even less. I mean,
yeah.
You know, if you have a distribution company or you have people that you can release the movies to through Universal or Hulu or something like that, then and you have the access to the distribution, you have a model where you can hire movie stars and you can get your movie seen. But if you don't have that, most people, right, on where we're working are still doing, you know, 700,000 is a big budget, or 500,000 or 200,000 or 100. I mean, I've made recent movies for can't even tell you. Well, I could, I should, but that'll be another article for Fangoria.
Well, it's also
these movies cost
the technology too, and I think really more than ever that it's the raw talent of the people that you get together, the filmmakers as well as the actors. I mean, if you find people that have great material, you can really do a lot these days. But again, talent wins out. I mean,
Talent always wins out. Yeah. And now that I've dipped my foot in the producing pool, I'm reading a lot of scripts, and it's still really difficult to find a great script, and no script is perfect, and all scripts are going to be altered or changed depending on the producers or mostly the director's inclination, and you have to allow for that as well. And you bring actors in, and that changes a bit, and it takes a very, very long time, I think, to do it well and do it right.
Absolutely. Well,
and I think it's harder too. Sorry.
Oh, no,
I
go
think
ahead.
it's harder too with a lot of these young filmmakers trying, coming out of the gate. And it is easier to make a film, and the technology is allowing for us to do that. But also, I feel like when you make your first couple of low budget movies, you've got to really do something amazing to be asked again to make another movie, because it used to be in the old days where you work your way up. All your movies get a little bit better.
Yep. Not anymore.
And you grow as a filmmaker. I don't think you get that opportunity anymore. So what do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right. And even beyond that, I discovered this being on the festival circuit with a number of different films that I was involved with as an editor, a producer, as a director. You also have to be anointed by whether you're making an indie feature and you take it on the festival route, you have to be anointed as being cool or like the next big thing. You can no longer be just a journeyman filmmaker that makes a good movie. You have to be like the breakout success story of the festival. And it was such a strange thing, because when I was a kid growing up and admiring John Carpenter or Joe Dante or David Cronenberg, and then later people like Stewart Gordon, and you become fans of these filmmakers and you would follow them. Like you would wait, like, what's Stewart Gordon gonna do next? Re-Animator was amazing, and I went and saw it 4 times in the theater. And is he gonna make another movie? And Stewart had Charlie Band. He had somebody that was allowing him to continue to make. I mean, I went and saw the first time I met Stewart I was at the Seattle Film Festival. I want to say in '87 or '6, and I went and saw Dolls. And Dolls was playing at the Seattle Film Festival, and I first met him, and he was very warm and very gracious.
Yes.
And then he also, when I directed my movie Free Enterprise, he saw a few cuts of it, and would, because of Dan Schweiger, and would give me notes. He didn't have to give me his time, and he was incredibly supportive. But he had. And then he had a certain amount of a bigger success with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So I wanted to see him parlay that into more. But what was it like having, working with the director who obviously made you, coming from the theater, he made you part of his company of players. And I always thought that was such a cool thing. And I thought that was what Hollywood was like. You'd develop this company of players, and you'd go on and you'd continue to make movies together. And he kind of got to do that for a while.
He did that. I think some filmmakers really like doing that, and I think other filmmakers don't. They just want to use new people all the time. It definitely helps the career of an actor if you have some success with a certain film, and then you bring your actors along again. And definitely Stewart helped me, because we did Re-Animator and we got amazing reviews. And then a year later he said, well, I want you to be in my next movie. And by the way, I'm going to give you a bigger part, and it's a more meaty part, and this is the part it is. That I didn't know it at the time, but that cemented me in, the horror genre. Really working with him on that second film, even before the third one. But it was gratifying to be able to work with somebody that felt as good about your talent as you felt about them.
Right.
And for somebody to say, yes, I want to work with you again. And really just that endeared me to him, endeared him to me so much. And it also allowed me to relax around him and relax around Jeffrey and feel like we were part of a family. And by that time we had a shorthand, and I feel like I was able to do some really good work with Stewart because of that, because he trusted me and I trusted him, and it was satisfying to work with him the 3 times really that I did. A fourth, if you want to count that I did a Tales from Beyond the Pale story, an audio story. But I said this only recently, before, just in interviews, because of his passing. A lot of people have been talking to me about Stewart, but I feel like obviously he pushed me in ways to do things on screen that nobody had ever seen before, nobody had ever done, but with the utmost respect and with class, and the thank God the material supported those moments, that you really felt like it elevated the whole piece, and also went to dark places that people were afraid to go to until he came along, and the scene that I was most afraid of in Re-Animator became one of the scenes that I'm most remembered for. So, and people love it. And also in From Beyond, I mean, I did some really risky things in that film as well. So, he pushed me to explore parts of myself, vulnerabilities that not a lot of people even today ask me to do. They'd be afraid to ask me.
Well, what was interesting, I mean, obviously in Re-Animator, the content was so outlandish, but it wasn't exploitative. I mean, it wasn't,
No.
I mean, sure, it was all literally very titillating and all of that, but it was so, like, you'd never, in a horror film, there was humor in that scene, and it was so
it was
crazy.
Funny and exciting and horrible at the same time. You're like, oh my God.
You can't believe. And then just when it's going to get crazy, then Jeffrey Combs walks in and just completely, with that great character, and then it became this totally different scene where a man and a man's head and his headless body start having this scene where they're acting, and he's putting him down and he's insulting him, and the whole scene was amazing. And nobody was doing that. I mean, in horror films, you had women were sex objects or they were killed. But in that particular scene, it was something, and especially it came along at a time when horror, we were leaving the slasher genre, or even with the Nightmare on Elm Street, the slasher genre was moving into a more fantastical realm, with Freddy coming into your dreams.
Yeah.
And then Re-Animator really opened the door. There were other horror films like Return of the Living Dead, which brought comedy and horror, but Re-Animator was something completely new. And no one had seen anything like that. And
it's incredibly layered and, expertly done.
Absolutely.
In the writing. Really, I owe that to Dennis Paoli as well as Stewart.
Well,
because they were writing partners. Yeah.
Stewart, when we were trying to get the money to do Nevermore, he would wax rhapsodic about you, like, for no reason at all. We wouldn't even necessarily be talking about anything, having anything to do with actresses. He would just bring you up. And he held you in the highest regard. I mean, he really, really liked working with you. And he's like, no, she's got to play his wife. And I'm like, great. That was good for me. And Darren Scott and I, we weren't able to raise the money, which was irksome, because Dennis Paoli rewrote this. This script is so good. They turned the one-man stage play into a feature-length.
I didn't even read it. You should send it to me.
I will. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's really good. And it's still got the one-man play element in it, but he broadened it out and made it a bigger. And I wanted to, if I had the money, I still want to make that movie. I mean,
how much do we need?
Well, we have a budget. It was less than $1 million. And that was, but we wanted to shoot it like we'd have to go to, because we get outside of the playhouse. So it's not just, we see. Yeah. So, but again, I talked to Jeffrey. I went to lunch with him about 3 months ago, and we were talking about that, and he said that there was someone who might have been able to come up with the money, and I think that film, what makes it, because you shoot the play, you could shoot it over a couple of days and just get as many camera angles as you could, but then the way Dennis had opened up the story is really interesting, and it made, if the film was made, it would be a timeless classic. It really would be. And hey, man, putting you and Jeff together in that movie would be great.
But who would direct it? No.
Well, that's therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, that would be, that you'd have to find somebody passionate about it. Somebody that obviously could, I don't know. That's a tough call. But I think it's worth doing because the script is so good. And I mean, Jeff is so good.
Send it to me. I need to read it. Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
And Jeff would love to do it. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And I've been dying to work with Jeff again. There's been a couple of times when we almost have recently, and it just hasn't worked out. But we need to do it again.
Well, it's
time.
He needs to work more. I mean, he's so good. And also, I'm a huge Star Trek fanatic. You know, I've worked. I directed a movie with William Shatner, and he was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine playing multiple roles, and the guy is so talented. And first of all, he's such a nice person too. I mean, it's just to watch him work. Just amazing. And so that's got to happen. I mean, but now people can put together, like you and Jeff are kind of the Avengers, you know, put together the Avengers of horror, because there's all these people are out there. Ken, you know, bring everybody back and do some kind of I don't know what that would be, but it'd be amazing. It would be amazing.
I'd be totally down for that.
Well, I think, you know, sort of to sum up, I don't want to keep you, I'm sure you got other things to do.
I have sweeping to do and laundry because, you know, I'm at home. I have my teenagers are at home and they're making lots of messes. Yeah.
Like, I think, what is it like? Like, what kind of advice, I guess, could you impart? Like you said, when you got your next, it was something that you thought you had left behind, but then you have this incredible career resurgence. And Shatner, obviously, he had the same thing when we were working with him. He thought he was kind of done, and then he came back, and then he got 2 Emmy Awards after he was on The Practice and Boston Legal. And when you see people they're continuing, like you just embraced it. You're like, nah, I'm over it. You dove back in wholeheartedly. What advice, you know, people look at me and they're like, Rob, don't you want to give up? Aren't you tired of the rap? And I'm like, no, man, because I get to make stuff all the time. Why would I want to stop? You know, it never gets easier, but is there anything, I don't know, any words of wisdom you can impart, having now gone through that experience of having somebody call you, you do Your Next, and now you're winning awards, writing columns for Fangoria, and you're in your filmography is incredible. So
I'd say, you know, maybe a few things. You have to find what works for you and for your personality as well. I think some things that worked for me is I love people. I love being around people, and some people are more hermit-like. I'm really not. So this has been hard for me to be home. After I saw, when I went on the film festival circuit with You're Next, and I realized that really Keith Calder, the producer, and Adam Wingard met at a film festival with different films years ago, I thought, oh, this is kind of how you do it. How do you build relationships now? You go to these film festivals because that's where the creative people are.
Right.
There are film festivals. So I started going to all these film festivals and asking them to invite me. So people would invite me, and then I would just ask. I would text them or email them or, you know, direct message them on Twitter and say, invite me to your film festival. I'd love to come. Then they'd go, oh, Barbara Crampton wants to come to our film festival. Let's show one of her old movies, and we'll show her new movie too. Or, you know, we'll just show her new movie or whatever. I started saying yes to these film festivals. I met so many people, and I met producers, directors, you know, just hanging out with people and talking about the kinds of things you like to work on and you're interested in. And it's definitely a business about relationships. So you've got to kind of curate those relationships. And like I said earlier, now that I'm producing a little bit, I think you don't send out your script until you really think that it's perfect, because somebody's going to read your script. And I read a lot of scripts and I go, yeah, there's some good stuff in here, but it's not perfect yet. And it takes a lot of energy to really curate, what it takes to make a good script. And I've been working for the last 4, I just finished filming something. It took me 4 years to get the script of Jacob's Wife to the place where I was able to have money people say yes to me. It took me 4 years, and I had 4 different writers on it, and that took notes and then rewrites, and then, well, okay, it's a little better, but let's try this person because it's not quite right yet, or the people that were interested in making it with me weren't satisfied. So it took me 4 years to get a good script, and I finally got it, and so I think you have to have good material, meet people on the film fest circuit when we're all able to come out of this dreadful lockdown and go out in the world again. And I think you should make short films with your friends on the weekends, make little things to, help you kind of hone your talents and your skills. And I've learned about writing a column by writing a column.
Right. Yes.
There was things I didn't think about until I was actually doing it. And then, I realized, oh, I write this, I put it down, it doesn't look so good. Okay, I'm going to work on it tomorrow. Well, it's a little better now. Oh, I had another thought. I'm going to look that thing up that I had a thought about. I'm going to put that in. No, that's crappy. I'm going to take that out. And then everybody says, well, all writing is rewriting. And I didn't really know what that meant until I started doing it. And then I went, oh, I get that now. And my writing really does get better after a week of working on it every day for a couple hours. Looks better now. Not perfect, not great, but it's looking better. So, and I think maybe having another job that, you have to sustain yourself. It wasn't the famous job. It was Harrison Ford worked as a carpenter with his brother for years. And when he first started working, he continued to be a carpenter. And so, I mean, you have to have some other things that are going to earn you money, and don't give up. Just don't give up. And know that you can have a career. And Robert, you've said it too. You've had better years than others. So, you've been in it for a really long time as well. So, and William Shatner, and here we all are 35 years later, and we're still doing it. And look at Charlie Band, what he was able to do with his company. He had a huge company. Empire Pictures had a lot of money, was able to raise money off the poster, right?
He was the master of that.
and make, right? He was. I don't think he can do that anymore, but
no.
He would get millions of dollars, and he would sell his movies. And then, things got tough, and then he had full moon features, and he was making them for, less money. And now his company, he's able to put, he's got how many titles now? 300 titles. He's able to put them on Amazon. He's making actual real money from his older titles now, and he's able to fund his new projects. And, everybody's reinventing themselves, as everyone has to do in every single business. My husband, no different, and he's in a completely different business, but he's had to reinvent himself over 40 years. And you just have to, keep out there, make friendships, make relationships, work really hard, have another thing in your back pocket you can do when you need to, and just hang in there.
Well, I have to say, you continue to be an inspiration, and it's been just delightful making your acquaintance face to face rather than just via social media. But even as you said, there are writers, authors I've never met that I've met over Twitter, and I'll just tweet about their books for no reason other than, oh my God, I just read the new so-and-so novel. And then they've reached out to me, and they send me their galleys to read, like some of my favorite authors. And I'm like, oh my, and I get it in the mail. I can't believe it. And then they write me and they're like, I don't even know why you were tweeting about a book I wrote 10 years ago, and you just started talking about it on Twitter. And I'm like, yeah, because it's awesome, and we have that world now.
Yeah, we have that world, and if you want to engage with the world that you're in.
Yeah.
So go on social media and engage with other people. And I do the same thing you do. If I see a movie that I love, that I think is great, or a performance that I love, I don't always tag that person. Sometimes I do, but I'll talk about it because I want people to know the things that I'm talking about and that I'm excited about. I want them to be excited about it too. so we can all share in the goodness of what's out there.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you for doing this and being on my 400th episode of my YouTube show. I never thought I'd be a YouTuber, but oh my God, now I am. And you know, in the middle of Dave Parker and I spent the last month doing special features for our movie, and then I'm going on YouTube, and Dave's working on a reality show, editing that. And I'm working on this Netflix thing, so we're jumping around doing. I mean, we're the poster boys of reinventing ourselves.
It's true, and I know Dave, struggles with the same thing, and I'm glad that he's hanging in there. And you know, he's been around for as long as I have, so I'm glad to see you both, you know, doing what you love.
Oh, it's great. I mean, I'd love nothing better than for Dave and I to make an actual another movie together.
Yeah,
which we're trying. So we will.
All right. Well, let's talk about Nevermore offline.
Yeah, I'll send you the script. Yes, we'll do that. Yeah. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Happy 400th.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
I'll see you later.